Sometimes, the quietest man in the room is the one who has already survived a war. But when his final tether to peace is threatened, the war comes home. And the home front, for a man like Marcus Thorne, is a quiet diner booth on a rainy Tuesday evening. The rain was a soft, persistent drumming against the diner's window, a sound Marcus Thorne had grown to find comforting. It was a clean noise, washing the world outside, unlike the remembered dry, crackling static of sand-filled winds or the pounding monsoons that turned foreign bases to mud. Here, in the warm glow of Clara's Corner Cafe, the rain just meant the sidewalks would shine under the streetlights later. Marcus sat in his usual booth, back to the wall, a clear line of sight to the door. It wasn't paranoia, it was geometry. A man aware of his exits was a man who could relax. On the vinyl seat beside him, Rex lay in a perfect, calm curl, his deep brown coat a stark contrast to the bright red of his service vest. Rex wasn't just a dog, he was a four-legged anchor. He was the reason Marcus could sit in a diner, could tolerate the clatter of plates, could breathe through the sudden, sharp memory of a backfiring truck that sounded, for one heart-stopping second, like something else entirely. Rex would press his weight against Marcus's leg, a silent, living reminder. You are here. In a diner. You are safe. That pressure was a more effective medicine than any pill from the VA. They came in laughing, a group of three young men, their voices loud and brash, cutting through the diner's gentle hum of conversation and oldies music. They slid into the booth opposite Marcus. He didn't look up, focusing on tracing the rim of his coffee cup with a thumb. He was practiced in the art of becoming invisible. Their conversation was about a football game, about someone's girlfriend, about nothing that mattered to Marcus. Until it was. Yo, check out the dog. One of them, a guy with a snapback hat tilted high, said. His name, Marcus would learn, was Chad. His voice carried. Looks fancy with that little vest, another smirked. Marcus kept his eyes down. Don't engage. Just the background noise. Rex shifted slightly, sensing the change in his human's posture, a subtle tightening. The waitress, Mary, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a tired smile, brought Marcus a slice of apple pie, on the house as always. How you doing today, sweetheart? She asked softly. Managing, Mary. Thank you, Marcus said, his voice a low rumble and used. Chad watched the exchange, then called out. Hey, lady, we need menus over here. Unless you're only serving war heroes. His friends chuckled. Mary's smile tightened, but she moved toward them with menus. As she passed their table, Chad stuck out a foot, not enough to trip her, but enough to make her sidestep awkwardly. Oops, he said, grinning. A flicker of heat rose in Marcus's chest. He took a slow, deliberate breath. Rex leaned harder against his leg. The young men's orders were loud and complicated. When their food came, Chad took a bite of his burger and made a face. This is cold in the middle. And the fries are soggy. You people can't cook a burger? Mary, flustered, apologized and offered to take it back. The manager, a nervous man named Phil, came over, offering a discount. The scene was a small, ugly drama playing out in the cozy space. Marcus finished his pie, his jaw tight. He signaled for the check. It was time to go. The atmosphere had soured. The rain had let up. A walk would be good. As Mary handed him his check, Chad, annoyed at the manager's resolution, looked for a new target. His eyes landed squarely on Rex. You know, health department probably has rules about animals in restaurants. Even fake service dogs. The words hung in the air. Marcus froze, his hand halfway to his wallet. Fake. Mary jumped in. He is a service dog, honey. He's here every week. Now please, just enjoy your meal. Prove it, Chad said, crossing his arms. What's he do? Fetch his meds? He looks like a glorified pet to me. Marcus felt the world narrow. The diner's sounds faded, the clinking cutlery, the hiss of the coffee machine, the muted TV news. A high-pitched ringing started in his ears, a familiar precursor to the tunnel vision that used to grip him in crowded markets overseas. He could feel the rough fabric of a different seat, the vibration of a heavy engine, the coppery taste of fear. Rex, sensing the storm building inside Marcus, sat up, placing his head firmly on Marcus's thigh, applying deep pressure. He's working right now, Marcus managed to say, each word feeling heavy and foreign. Working on looking cute. One of Chad's friends laughed. Chad, emboldened, slid out of his booth. He took a few steps toward Marcus. I'm allergic, man. Seriously, you need to take your pet outside. Mary moved to block him. Sir, step back. Leave him alone. Or what? Chad said, looking down at her. That's when Marcus stood up. He wasn't a tall man, He was solid, built like a tree trunk. Years of carrying 100 pounds of gear had given him a posture that seemed to fill more space than he physically occupied. His movement was smooth, controlled, but everything about it screamed danger. The easygoing, invisible man was gone. In his place was someone whose eyes were the flat, cold gray of a winter sky. "The dog stays," Marcus said. His voice was no longer a rumble, but a quiet, sharp blade of sound. "You step back." Now, Chad, for a second, hesitated. He saw something in Marcus's face that his bravado hadn't prepared him for. But, with his friends watching, he couldn't back down. "Make me, Grandpa." It happened in a blur. Chad made a sudden, jerking move, not toward Marcus, but toward Rex, as if to shoo him away. It was a stupid, aggressive gesture. Rex, trained to protect his handler from perceived threats, let out a low, warning growl, baring his teeth. He didn't move from Marcus's side, but the message was clear. Chad yelped and jumped back. "It attacked me. Did you see that? The damn thing tried to bite me." He did not. Mary shouted. Marcus had placed his body between Chad and Rex. His hands were open at his sides, but they were clenched into fists, the knuckles white. Every muscle was coiled. He was back in a place where threats were neutralized, fast and hard. The diner's warm light felt like the glare of a sun-bleached outpost. The smell of frying grease was now the smell of diesel and dust. "Last chance," Marcus breathed, the words barely audible. "Walk away." Instead, Chad pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the cops. This lunatic and his attack dog are threatening me." The manager, Phil, was wringing his hands. "Please, everyone, just calm down." "Sir," he turned to Marcus, his voice pleading. "Maybe just wait outside with the dog until the police come and sort this out? For the peace of the diner." Marcus looked at Phil, then at Mary's worried face, then at the smug, victorious expression on Chad's as he spoke dramatically into his phone. To stand his ground meant escalating, meant possibly frightening the other patrons, meant causing trouble for Mary, who had always been kind to him. The fight drained out of him, replaced by a cold, heavy weariness. He had survived IEDs and firefights only to be defeated by a spoiled kid with a phone. "Fine," Marcus said, the word tasting like ash. He clipped Rex's leash. "We'll wait outside." He walked out into the damp evening air, the bell on the diner door jingling a cheerful goodbye that felt like a mockery. He stood under the awning, Rex sitting stoically beside him, both of them silhouetted against the glow of the diner window. Inside, he could see Chad and his friends laughing, celebrating their victory. Marcus's hand rested on Rex's head. The dog looked up at him, his eyes full of an intelligence and loyalty that Chad would never understand. "It's okay, boy," Marcus whispered. "It's okay." But it wasn't, because Chad, on his call to 911, hadn't just said there was a dispute. In his anger and desire to be the victim, he had embellished. He'd said there was a highly agitated, possibly armed veteran having a psychotic episode, threatening customers with a dangerous animal. He'd used words like hostage situation and unstable. And in a city on edge after recent events, the police dispatcher heard a specific set of keywords: agitated veteran, threats, possible weapon, public space. The call was upgraded. A standard unit was sent, yes. But so was someone else. As Marcus waited patiently for a regular police cruiser, two things were happening across town. A pair of uniformed officers were getting into their car, responding to a disturbance. And, in a nondescript building, a team of 6 men in dark tactical gear, specialists in crisis negotiation and de-escalation with mentally disturbed individuals. A team sometimes, cruelly, called the veteran vanquishers behind their backs, were given a green light. Their mandate: contain, isolate, and resolve a potential mass casualty event. They moved with silent, lethal efficiency, loading into an unmarked van. The clock was ticking. For Marcus, standing quietly in the rain with his dog, the world was still just a stupid, unfair altercation at a diner. He had no idea that the geometry of his evening was about to be violently redrawn, and that the war he thought he'd left behind was now racing through the city streets toward him, its sirens off, its lights dark. Part 2. The first police cruiser arrived with a polite flash of red and blue, its siren giving a brief, professional whoop as it pulled to the curb. 2 officers, Officer Ruiz and Officer Daly, stepped out. They looked bored, expecting a routine noise complaint or a drunk and disorderly. Ruiz, the older of the two, took in the scene, a quiet, middle-aged man in a worn jacket standing calmly under an awning with a dog, and, through the window, three young men who immediately started talking animatedly, pointing at Marcus. "Evening," Ruiz said, approaching Marcus cautiously but without aggression. "We got a call about a disturbance involving a dog. That your service animal?" "Yes, sir," Marcus said, his voice steady. He kept his hands visible. "Rex." He certified. "There was a misunderstanding. A customer was harassing us, tried to provoke the dog. The manager asked me to wait out here." Ruiz nodded, glancing at Rex, who was sitting placidly, ignoring the officers entirely, a hallmark of a well-trained service dog. "Mind if I see his papers?" Marcus pulled a small, waterproof folder from his jacket pocket, handing over the official documentation, vaccination records, and a letter from the VA. Ruiz scanned them. It was all in order. Inside, Daly was talking to Chad and his friends. Their story was louder, more dramatic. He just snapped. He was like staring into space. Then, he jumped up and got in my face. The dog growled and tried to bite me. "Look, I've got a mark." Chad showed a faint red line on his hand, likely from his own nervous scratching. Daly came back out. "Their story's a bit different," he said to Ruiz. "They're saying threats were made, the dog was aggressive. He growled as a warning when this guy made a sudden move toward him," Marcus explained, a trace of frustration seeping into his tone. "It was a trained response to a perceived threat to me. He didn't bite, didn't lunge." Ruiz looked from Marcus's earnest, tired face to the smirking young man inside. He'd been on the job 20 years. He could read a scene. This was a bully who'd picked on the wrong quiet guy and was now covering his ass. "All right," Ruiz sighed. "Look, Mr. Thorne. It's a he said, she said. The manager wants it dropped. The kid's not pressing charges if the dog didn't actually bite. My advice? Just head home. It's not worth the hassle." Marcus felt a wave of relief. "Thank you, officer." Ruiz handed back the papers. "Get some pie to go next time." Marcus managed a small, tight smile. He turned to leave, giving Rex's leash a gentle tug. It was over. A nasty incident, but over. That's when the unmarked black van turned the corner at the far end of the street. It didn't speed. It glided, a shark in the urban water. It pulled to a stop half a block past the diner, its doors sliding open silently. Ruiz and Daly noticed it. Their posture changed instantly, from relaxed resolution to alert confusion. "What the hell is CIRT doing here?" Daly muttered, referring to the Crisis Intervention Response Team. 6 figures in full black tactical gear, helmets, and ballistic vests emerged. They moved not with the casual stride of beat cops, but with a purposeful, coordinated flow, fanning out. 2 moved toward the back of the diner. 2 took positions behind parked cars, rifles not raised but held at the ready. The lead negotiator, call sign Oracle, and his point man, Javelin, approached the diner's front. Oracle carried a ballistic shield and a megaphone. Javelin had his rifle up, scanning. Marcus had frozen. The sight of the tactical gear, the swift, silent deployment, it triggered a visceral avalanche. The damp street evaporated. He was back on a dusty road, the crack of sniper fire ringing out, the chaotic scramble for cover. His breathing hitched. The world began to tilt. Rex immediately began nudging his hand, then pressed firmly against his legs, applying grounding pressure. But the stimulus was too intense. "Officers." Marcus's voice was strained. "What is this?" Ruiz stepped toward Oracle, his hands up. Whoa, stand down. Situation is resolved. We have a resolved disturbance. No weapons, no active threat." Oracle's voice was calm, metallic through his helmet's comms. "Step aside, officer. We have a report of an armed, unstable individual with a weaponized animal, potentially holding civilians. We are taking command." "That report is false," Ruiz insisted, anger rising. "This is Marcus Thorne. He's a local vet with a service dog. The weaponized animal is a German Shepherd PTSD service dog. The hostages are the idiots who called it in. Protocol is clear," Oracle stated, his eyes invisible behind his visor, fixed on Marcus. "We assess." "Sir," he called to Marcus, his voice amplified but trying for a calm tone through the megaphone. "My name is Sergeant Miller. We're here to help. I need you to slowly lie face down on the ground, arms and legs spread. We need to secure the animal." The word secure sent a jolt of pure terror through Marcus. They wanted to take Rex. They would hurt him. In his spiraling mind, secure didn't mean leash. It meant neutralize. "Shoot." "No," Marcus said, the word a low growl. He stepped back, pulling Rex closer to him, putting his body between the dog and the rifles. You don't touch him. Sir, compliance is the safest path for everyone, Oracle said. Daly was on his radio, frantically calling dispatch, trying to get the CRT stand-down order. But the chain of command was tangled. The initial call's coding had set a machine in motion, and it was hard to stop. Inside the diner, patrons were crouching below the windowsills, peeking out in horror. Mary was crying. Chad and his friends were pale, finally, understanding the monstrous fire they had casually sparked. Marcus, listen to me, Ruiz pleaded, turning his back to the tactical team, trying to make a human connection. Just do what they say for a minute. Let me sort this out. They won't hurt the dog if you comply. But Marcus was gone. He was in a different timeline. The black helmets were the faceless enemy. The megaphone was the distorted buzz of an enemy loudspeaker. The street was a kill zone. His training, older and more deeply etched than any police procedure, took over. He needed cover. He needed to protect his asset, Rex. His eyes darted. The diner door was a trap. The street was exposed. The only viable cover was the narrow alley beside the diner, leading to the back parking lot. I'm not going down, Marcus said, his voice flat and dead. I'm leaving with my dog. He turned and moved, not running, but walking with swift, decisive purpose toward the alley mouth, Rex glued to his side. Subject is moving. He's fleeing. Javelin's voice crackled. Do not pursue. Hold position, Ruiz yelled, but it was too late. Oracle gave the signal. The team moved forward, a wall of advancing Kevlar. The two officers from the back now appeared at the other end of the alley, blocking Marcus's exit from the parking lot. He was funneled. Marcus stopped, trapped in the dim alley, dumpsters on either side. He turned to face the advancing team at the front. He put Rex behind him, against the diner's brick wall. Stay, he commanded, a voice that brooked no argument. Rex whined but obeyed, lying down, eyes fixed on Marcus. Marcus raised his empty hands. They were shaking, but he held them high. I am unarmed. My dog is a service animal. I am leaving. Oracle, now at the alley entrance, shield forward, spoke. On the ground now? Last warning. A sudden noise, a trash can lid clattering from the other end of the alley as the rear officers moved, sounded, to Marcus's hyper-aware senses, like a grenade being primed. He flinched, a full-body jerk. In that split second, Javelin, seeing the sudden movement from a man he believed to be armed and unstable, shouted, He's reaching. It was a fatal misreading. Marcus's hand had instinctively gone toward his jacket pocket, a pocket that held only his wallet and a packet of dog treats. But the intent didn't matter. The perception did. Light him up, Javelin yelled. A blinding, searing pain exploded in Marcus's chest and legs. The world dissolved into a cacophony of blinding white flashes and a sound like a million angry wasps. 50,000 volts of electricity from two simultaneously fired tasers arced through his body. His muscles locked in agonizing contortion. He collapsed to the wet asphalt like a felled tree, a silent scream locked in his throat. From behind him, a sound tore through the alley, a sound of pure, unadulterated canine fury and despair. Rex, seeing his handler, his reason for being, struck down and, convulsing, broke his stay command. With a roar that was more wolf than dog, Rex launched himself forward, placing his body over Marcus's twitching form. He faced the tactical team, teeth bared, a low, continuous, thunderous growl vibrating from his chest. He didn't advance. He stood his ground, a living, snarling shield over the man who was his world. The dog. The dog is engaging, someone shouted. 4 red laser dots danced over Rex's dark fur, converging on his center mass. In the diner, Mary screamed. Officer Ruiz roared. Hold your fire, you idiots. Hold your fire. On the ground, muscles seizing, vision blurred with pain and tears, Marcus could just make out the shape of his dog standing over him. He tried to speak, to tell Rex to stand down, but only a choked gasp came out. The last thing he saw before darkness swallowed him was the unwavering, courageous silhouette of his friend, outlined against the cruel, sterile lights of the tactical team, standing between him and the abyss. Part 3. The alley was a frozen tableau of shock and impending violence. The growl coming from Rex was a primal sound, vibrating off the brick walls and cutting through the ringing silence left by the tasers. The 4 laser sights painted unwavering red dots on his chest. Officer Ruiz broke the stalemate. He didn't think. He acted. He stepped directly into the line of fire, his uniformed body a barrier between the tactical team and the dog. He spread his arms wide, facing the black-clad figures. The next shot anyone fires goes through me first. His voice was a raw, commanding bark that left no room for argument. Lower your weapons. Now, for a tense second, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Oracle made a sharp downward gesture with his hand. The laser dots vanished. The rifles were lowered, but fingers remained on triggers, bodies taut. Officer, you are interfering with a critical operation. Oracle's voice was tight, with controlled fury. The operation is based on a lie. Ruiz shot back, not moving an inch. He glanced at Daly, who was already moving toward Marcus's prone, twitching form. Rex snarled a warning, but Ruiz spoke, his voice dropping, trying to reach the animal. Easy, boy. Easy. We're helping him. We're helping Marcus. Daly, moving with deliberate slowness, knelt beside Marcus. He checked for a pulse. It was racing but strong. The taser barbs were embedded in his chest and thigh. He's breathing. Need EMS. Call it in, Ruiz said, then turned back to Oracle. Your armed and unstable subject is an unarmed, decorated Army veteran with severe PTSD. Your weaponized animal is a medically necessary service dog who is currently protecting his incapacitated handler from what he sees as attackers. You just tasered a sick man because a punk kid lied to 911. Now, you will stand down, or I will have every news station in the city here in 10 minutes. The word news did it. Oracle's helmet tilted slightly. He keyed his mic, speaking in low tones to his command. The static-filled reply was inaudible. After a moment, he gave another hand signal. His team visibly relaxed, stepping back, weapons pointing at the ground. The immediate threat was over. But the damage was done. Sirens wailed in the distance, ambulances this time. The diner door burst open, and Mary ran out, ignoring the tactical team, a first aid kit in her hands. She pushed past everyone and knelt by Marcus, opposite Daly. She took Marcus's hand, which was still clenched in a fist. Oh, honey, she whispered, her tears falling on his jacket. Rex watched her, his growl subsiding to a desperate whine. He nudged Marcus's face with his nose, licking his cheek. It's okay, Rex, Mary said softly, tears in her voice. He's okay. You're such a good boy. You protected him. The EMTs arrived, pushing a gurney. Seeing the tactical gear and the dog, they paused. We need to get to him. Rex positioned himself over Marcus again, a clear message. The dog is non-negotiable, Ruiz stated firmly to the lead EMT. He goes with him. He's medical equipment. If you try to separate them, you'll have a worse situation. I'll ride in the ambulance to ensure it. The EMTs, experienced with urban chaos, nodded. They worked around Rex, carefully cutting away Marcus's jacket to remove the taser probes and check for injuries. As they lifted him onto the gurney, Rex walked right beside it, his head level with Marcus's still hand. Inside the diner, Chad and his friends were being read their rights by a newly arrived patrol sergeant. Their bravado had dissolved into stammering fear. We didn't mean for this. He was scary. You meant to bully him. And when it didn't work, you weaponized the police, the sergeant said coldly. You're being detained for filing a false report and reckless endangerment. Let's go. As Marcus was loaded into the ambulance, Ruiz climbing in after Rex, Oracle approached. He had removed his helmet. He was a man in his 40s with a grim, lined face. He looked at Marcus, unconscious on the gurney, at the loyal dog steadfastly beside him, and then at the taser barbs in the EMT's plastic biohazard bag. Officer Ruiz, Oracle said, his voice now just a tired man's voice. When he's awake, tell him. Ruiz just stared at him, his eyes blazing with contempt. Tell him yourself. But I'd recommend you have your lawyer do the talking. The ambulance doors closed, cutting off the scene of the alley, the trash, the tactical team standing in awkward silence, the crying waitress, the flashing lights. It carried Marcus and Rex away from the battlefield, towards St. Vincent's Hospital. In the ambulance, the EMT monitored Marcus's vitals. Ruiz sat on the bench, watching Rex, who had laid his head on Marcus's stomach, his eyes wide and worried. The dog would occasionally lick Marcus's fingers. He's coming around, the EMT said. Marcus's eyelids fluttered. Pain was his first consciousness, a deep, bruising ache in his chest and legs, and a feeling of utter muscular exhaustion. Then came confusion, then the sharp spike of panic. The alley, the lights, the pain. Rex. He tried to sit up, a grunt escaping his lips. Easy, Mr. Thorne. You're in an ambulance. You're safe. The EMT's voice was calm. Marcus's wild eyes found Rex's face immediately. Seeing his dog, feeling the weight of his head, the panic receded a fraction. His hand moved weakly to touch Rex's ear. "Good boy," he rasped. Then, he saw Ruiz in the corner, the police uniform. The memory flooded back, clearer now. The officers who had tried to help. And the others. They tasered me, Marcus said, the reality of it settling in with a heavy, humiliating weight. "They did," Ruiz said, his voice thick with anger on Marcus's behalf. "Based on a false report. The kids who started it are in cuffs. The tactical team, they're standing down." Marcus closed his eyes. A single tear tracked through the grime on his temple. He wasn't crying from the physical pain. He was crying because the one place he had fought to build, a fragile, quiet life where he could get pie with his dog, had been invaded and shattered in minutes. The war had found him, and it was wearing a police badge. "Rex, they didn't. He's fine. He's a hero," Ruiz said quickly. "He stood over you. Protected you. They almost." He couldn't finish the sentence. "But they didn't. Because of him." Marcus's hand tightened in Rex's fur. The dog whined softly and licked his wrist. At the hospital, the emergency room was a controlled chaos. Ruiz was true to his word. He explained the situation forcefully to the triage nurse and the attending physician. "This dog is a PTSD service animal. Separating them is medically contraindicated and will cause severe distress to my victim. He stays." The hospital had a policy, but faced with a determined police officer and the sight of the large, calm dog lying attentively under the gurney, they made an exception. They curtained off a bay in the ER for Marcus. Doctors examined him, treating the taser burn wounds, checking for cardiac abnormalities, and giving him mild sedatives for the shock and the brewing panic attack. Through it all, Rex lay on the floor, his body touching the side of the bed, a warm, breathing line connecting Marcus to reality. A hospital administrator came by, talking about rules and hygiene. Ruiz, still there, simply said, "Get me the forms for a service animal accommodation." Now, the administrator left, flustered. As the sedatives took the sharp edge off, Marcus floated in a gray, exhausted space. He heard Ruiz on the phone in the hallway, his voice rising. "No, he is not a suspect. He is a victim of a false report and excessive force. I don't care what CERT's protocol says, their intel was garbage." The fragments of conversation pieced together the nightmare for Marcus. A false report. A swatting. He'd read about it happening to gamers and celebrities online. It had happened to him. Because he was a veteran with a dog. The label made him a target in a database somewhere, a trigger for a disproportionate response. Later, a detective arrived to take his statement. Marcus told it simply, from the diner booth to the alley. The detective listened, his expression grim. "The individuals who made the false call are being charged. As for the CRT response, that's an internal affairs matter. There will be an investigation." An investigation. Marcus knew what that meant. A long, draining process where his life, his trauma, his service would be picked apart by strangers to determine if getting tasered was justified. Ruiz came back in as the detective left. "My shift ended hours ago," he said. "But I'll be around. My cell is on this card. You call me for anything. You're not alone in this, Marcus." Marcus nodded, unable to find words to express the gratitude for this stranger's fierce advocacy. Finally, they were alone in the dim room, just Marcus and Rex. The beeps of the monitors were the only sound. Marcus slid a hand down, and Rex lifted his head to meet it. "You could have gotten shot," Marcus whispered to him. "You stupid, brave dog." Rex's tail thumped once on the floor. In that quiet hospital room, the shock began to harden into something else, a cold, clear understanding. This wasn't just a bad night. This was a systemic failure that had nearly killed him and his dog. The men in the diner were just the spark. The true danger lived in the unchecked protocols, the fear-driven response, the faceless system that saw veteran and dog and computed threat. As he stared at the acoustic-tiled ceiling, Marcus Thorne, who had spent years trying to forget the feel of a rifle in his hands, realized a new battle was beginning. This one wasn't in a distant desert. It was here at home, and he had just been drafted. Part for the next 48 hours were a strange, suspended animation. Marcus was discharged from the hospital with stern warnings to rest and follow up with his VA therapist for the trauma. A trauma now layered like sedimentary rock, the oldest strata from the desert, the newest from a city alley. Officer Ruiz drove him and Rex home to his small, tidy apartment. The silence there was different now, charged with memory. News of the incident had leaked. A local reporter, tipped off by a diner patron, ran a story, decorated veteran, service dog tasered by police after false swatting call. It had all the incendiary elements: a war hero, a loyal service animal, excessive force, and clueless bullies. The story began to spread. Marcus ignored the knocking on his door. He let calls from unknown numbers go to voicemail. He sat on his couch, Rex at his feet, and stared at the wall. The physical pain was manageable. The psychological fallout was a tsunami still approaching shore. He jumped at the sound of a neighbor's door slamming. The flash of car headlights through his blinds made his heart stutter. The world outside his apartment felt like a minefield. Ruiz checked in daily. The DA is moving forward with charges against the kids, filing a false report, endangerment, hate crime enhancement. It's serious. He paused. Internal Affairs has opened a case on the CIRT team. They want your official complaint. Marcus just grunted. A complaint felt like whispering into a hurricane. Then, an email arrived. It was from a woman named Anya Sharma, a lawyer with the nonprofit Justice for Service Members. Her message was direct. Mr. Thorne, I've seen the reports. What happened to you is a profound injustice and a violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Your service dog was unlawfully targeted, and you were harmed as a direct result. I would like to offer our legal assistance, pro bono, to hold the responsible parties accountable. Not just the young man, but the city and the police department. He stared at the words. Hold the responsible parties accountable. It was a phrase that moved the battle from his aching body to a courtroom. He wrote back a single line. I'm listening. Anya came to his apartment. She was sharp, poised, and carried an air of quiet fury. She listened as Marcus told his story again, her eyes missing nothing. The way he glanced at Rex for reassurance, the tremor in his hands when he described the tasers. This is bigger than a mistake, Marcus, she said. This is about a pattern. The 911 operator who coded the call based on bias. The CIRT team's protocol that treats veteran and agitated as synonyms for armed and dangerous. The failure to communicate with the first responders on scene. And the attempt to separate you from Rex. That's a direct ADA violation. We can sue the city. We can force policy changes. We can make sure this doesn't happen to the next guy. I don't want money, Marcus said, his voice hoarse. I know, Anya replied softly. You want it to not have happened. Since we can't do that, we make it so expensive and so public for them that they are forced to change. We use the system that failed you to fix itself. He agreed. Signing the retainer felt like picking up a weapon again. The story went national. A major network picked it up, using cell phone footage from the diner window, grainy, shaky, but showing the terrifying advance of the tactical team, and the moment Marcus fell. It showed Rex leaping to cover him. The audio was filled with the dog's ferocious growls and the shouted commands. America watched, horrified. Marcus was asked for interviews. He refused at first. Then, Anya said, the narrative is being written without you. The police union is putting out statements about difficult, high-pressure situations. You need to own your story. So, he sat for one interview, in his apartment, with Rex beside him. He spoke haltingly, not as a hero, but as a man who was tired and scared. Rex isn't a pet. He's the reason I can go to the grocery store. He's the reason my heart doesn't feel like it's going to explode in a crowd. When they came for him, they were coming for my lifeline. He looked directly into the camera, his veteran steel showing through. This didn't start with the guys in the diner. It ended with them. It started with a system that sees guys like me as problems waiting to happen. I serve my country. Now I have to ask my country not to see me as the enemy in my own hometown. The interview was a bombshell. Public sentiment solidified. A social media campaign, #StandWithRex and Marcus, went viral. Donations poured into Anya's nonprofit. Other veterans came forward with stories of similar, if less extreme, discrimination and encounters with police who didn't understand PTSD or service animals. The city was in damage control mode. The mayor announced a full, independent review. The police chief gave a press conference expressing regret for the outcome, but defending his officers' adherence to protocol. Protocol. The word became a curse in Marcus's mind. The internal pressure built. Then, a break. Officer Ruiz, off the record, connected Anya with Daly, his partner. Daly, burdened by what he'd seen, was willing to give a statement to Internal Affairs. He detailed how he and Ruiz had clearly stated the situation was resolved, how they had identified Marcus and Rex, and how the CIRT team had aggressively disregarded their assessment. He confirmed that Marcus had been complying until he felt trapped and panicked. It was the crack in the blue wall Anya needed. A week after the incident, Marcus received a registered letter. It was a formal invitation from the Office of the Police Commissioner to a restorative dialogue with the commander of the CIRT team, Sergeant Miller, Oracle. They want to meet you.